Hello, my name is Nikki. I am really excited to talk to you on this recording about a really, really important subject in your class business, and that is the voice of your class business. And it ties in with everything you'll be building in your automations here with us at Scale Beyond You. So let's get dug straight in. Okay, let me ask you this question first off. If your class business was a person and they walked into a coffee shop, what would that person be like? Would they be warm? Would they be energetic and fun and bubbly? Or would they be calm and at ease and make you feel real comfortable? Would they come across really professional and, quite serious in some way? Or would they be really chaotic and all over the place and not quite sure? And would you actually want to sit and have a coffee with this person? And would your customers and your students and your families describe this person in the same way? Would it come across? Would that person come across how it lives inside your head? And would your team, if you have team that work within your class business, describe that person in the same way as well? Do they know what's inside your head about how you want this person to enter into the coffee shop? And most class business owners have a really clear idea about how they want their voice to come across and how they want it to feel, but it often lives with them and they haven't quite got it out there and trained their team and threaded it through all their automations and their communications within the class business, so it's all consistent. So your school has a voice whether you've intentionally created it or not. Your school has a voice whether you intentionally created it or not. So when you hear the words brand voice, you have to think about your logo and your social media imagery and your colours and sort of like any marketing that you might do. Yes, that's true. Your voice does come across in there, but it's often easy to forget that it comes through in every interaction. Whether that is the way that someone answers the telephone, the way that someone answers a WhatsApp message, or an email that's getting done manually, how we interact with families if their payments possibly overdue or whatever that might be, or reply to a frustrated customer, or the wording of your automated emails that are sent ahead of an event, or the way that you and a team member explains possibly like a difficult situation or have a difficult conversation. And also the conversations that happen between team members, I think, is a really important one that really needs to be pulled into the voice of your class business. And the way you speak when your business feels under pressure, we have to remain within that voice, because every interaction that you have with people teaches them something about your business, that customers and team and students are not only listening to your words, they're also noticing how quick you respond, how clear is the information, whether the message feels cold or warm or robotic, or does it feel like an actual human, and whether different team members give the same answer or there's no consistency throughout. Does it feel organized, and whether they feel understood and valued. So your logo might help someone recognize your school like instantly. Yeah, that's so-and-so, or your class business, or your yoga classes, or whatever it is. But the voice is what helps them feel the trust, and that they know you and they know what they're going to receive and what they learn to expect when they come along to your service, to your class, to your studio, whatever you are providing. So the voice must remain consistent, but your tone can adapt to the situation. So let's just explore some examples of that. So the school's voice, you've decided you want to be really warm clear, really encouraging, and really, really human-like. So that's the tone. But the tone doesn't always have to remain really sort of a friendly feeling without sort of your boundaries in place in different situations. So it can adapt as long as the underlying tone and voice stays the same. Underlying voice stays the same. The tone can adapt to the situation. So for example, if we are celebrating an achievement or a milestone, we can use the same voice, but we elevate it into excited and sparkly, or you're creating and refining your welcome communications, and that is obviously going to be really reassuring and making sure that it's really clear so people settle their nerves. But that must thread through to when they arrive in the building to whoever is greeting that student. That voice and that tone that's set in that particular communication to a new student must remain the same through email communication and human communication. Then we end up dealing with, the complaints and the worries. So we have to keep our voice, but we have to make that much more professional and understanding, and adapt a different tone according to that situation, so they feel that you are, as a class business, able to adapt to the situation, and that it doesn't feel robotic and you just try to fob them off with a quick email. Then we move into things like, if a direct debit bounces, the follow-up on that email, which we can build into automations, should remain the same voice. How your school is recognised or your class business is recognised, but we adapt that clear and firm approach and tone to make sure they understand the boundary set and the terms and conditions set within your unpaid invoice. So it's just to be clear that being friendly and warm, if you choose to really adapt that in your voice of your class business, doesn't mean that every message needs to end with like a ton of exclamation marks and overly crazy enthusiastic language. We can adapt that tone according to the part of the communication. And as you work through your automations, we'll have to write lots of different communications, and it's really important we take a moment to really think about the voice, but the appropriate tone in that situation. So a strong business knows who it is without sounding exactly the same in every situation. A strong business that looks organized and knows how to communicate well will have really strong voice and a really smooth way of adapting their tone accordingly. So let's take that into practice. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to press pause after I've explained this, and I'd like you to think about your last 5 communications or the last thing you worked on in building your automations. And say, for example, that could be you've just written your chain of welcome enrollment automations, and there's a little bit about the parking, there's a little bit about the teachers, who the teacher is, or you've written some recent emails regarding payment, or you have written some material to use on social media. If you removed your logo, your branded colours, the class business's name, would the person you're speaking to, if they got all of those messages that you're just going to pinpoint right now, would they know that they all came from the same business? Does it have the same underlying voice? Does it sound like you and what's inside your head? Have you transferred that into words? With the correct adaptation of tone, depending on what you're talking about, but does it have the same voice? Can you tell that it's you? Can you tell it's your class business? So pause me now, do that task before we go any further. Because it's really important that we pinpoint that. And if everything's feeling like it's coming from the same person sat in the coffee shop having a chin wag, right? Okay, let's bring it back. So we have to think about the voice being something that people hear before they actually step into your class. So wherever they see you, whether that's on social media, whether that's through a recommendation from another student or customer, or they've found you through your website or an email that you may have sent out, that they have formed an opinion on your class business through the voice and the language that you're presenting and using before they even arrive in your class. They've formed that opinion. They've already created a picture in their mind based on what they've read and how it's been written. So it's so important that we nail down the voice of everything that people receive before they walk through that door. Because if they're met with something that's totally different, they're going to be like, this doesn't connect. This is not the voice that I've been listening to in the communications. This feels off. It feels like it's battling each other. So does your journey feel like one connected experience, or does every stage sound like it's coming from a different business? Take a moment to, take every part of your communications and make sure you've read through them, rewritten them, read them out loud. Read them in your voice because it's your voice, right? Read them out loud and make sure that it sits within your voice. It'll make such a difference. So if there's a disconnect, it can mean loss of enrollments. It can mean that people don't come back. It adds to your workload because you're wanting to chase up that customer to find out. So if we put this in place, it can really sort of bring that continuity and reduce your churn rate. It can really improve the customer's experience and the student experience before they actually arrive through the door. Because people build trust when the experience matches the promise. So we want to match the experience that they have before they enter the class or the building, and then what they receive is what you've promised, and that needs to be the same. And then we have lots of happy customers. Okay. And another thing I want to throw in there to add in a little bit more sparkle is, how do you want people to feel after they've communicated with their school? What feeling do they want to feel? Like, would you like them to feel safe and supported? Do you want to throw in a little bit there, like you want them to feel really excited and they just can't wait to get there? And that they're really part of something? Are you creating a real community vibe where it feels part of a family? Are you heading towards that it's a really professional class or company or class offering, and you've got really clear set out boundaries, it's high end, you've got to be ready to commit, they've got a big commitment? So that if that's what you're expecting within your class business, then that has to be voiced right from the start. So one good exercise is, before you start to choose your words and you're going through all these communications, is to decide how you want the person to feel that's receiving the information. So I'm just going to slide into a little bit where I really want you to focus on this. So we're moving away now from the written communication and the presentation on social media, and I'm going to move into your leadership. The language and voice that you use verbally is key. I honestly can't tell you how much of a difference this will make to everything. So I've been working recently with a fantastic dance studio owner, and we've been speaking quite a lot about culture of her staff. And we've spoke about how that comes from the top. So the people your team, if you have team, learn the culture from you. They repeat what they hear every day. So it's, if you find yourself slipping into using language like, oh gosh, tonight was crazy, like the parents were a nightmare. If you keep repeating that on week and week out, what are your team going to think? How are they going to start behaving? You're forming a culture where they think that because they think that's how they should think in these situations. And a big one, and I've done it myself, where you're like, nobody ever reads anything. They don't read anything. Then that becomes what your team pick up on. I've seen it within my team where I've started being, I've had a hard week and I slip into sort of this negative cycle of language in front of the team, and they pick up on it, and I can feel the energy change in the room. Like I'm running out of time, there's not enough hours in the day letting out my feelings in that moment. Or you guys should know this already, I've explained it before, and just feeding in this tone, and it might feel like harmless in the minute because you just want to say how you feel, but on repeat this language becomes part of your class business's culture. So how can we flip that round? How can we change that? I'm hoping you're shouting out loud to the screen right now. If this was a live call, I'd be getting everybody to give me some examples. So I'll give the examples. Let's work out what's causing this. How can we fix it? What can I do to support you in this situation? What do you need from me? Who's responsible for this? So let's figure it out, and we can find out where it's rooting from. Is there a system that's preventing this from happening? Is there something that we can build? Can we make this easier for everybody so things are not slipping through the cracks? And what needs to change so that it doesn't have to come back to me all the time, and you can make decisions independently of me? Like, what can we put in place? Let's do this together. Let's work as a team and figure this out. Can you book some time with me next week and we'll talk through it? And do you know what? As a parent, sometimes you can't read all the emails. So let's think about it. Shall we put that on a repeat? Shall we set up a automated system that sends out those emails 2, 3, 4 times so they've got the information in their inbox and they're more likely to see one of them? Talk through it. Let's bring this round in a positive way. So those are some examples how you can flip it round, and you'll soon feel your team feed off of that. And I sometimes sit in the office, in the studio, and I'll hear a sentence that I've said, and I'm like, oh, hen, how wonderful. So they'll be like, let's figure it out. Let's look at how we can make this better next time. And I know that didn't go quite right this time, caused loads of extra admin. Let's see if we can put that into a system and automate it next time so we don't have the same issue. So it's really great. The languages that you speak, the tone that you set becomes the culture in the school. And I know that can be challenging. I know that that's hard to keep yourself on the straight and narrow all the time, but your team borrows your language and borrows your culture and your voice before they borrow the systems that you're setting up. So you are the one who's leading the tone within your class business. So have a little think, is there something that you know that you're saying on repeat that feels a little bit off, and you are maybe setting a culture that you don't want to set without realizing? Have a little moment and think, I say that all the time. Maybe that's having a bit of an impact on the way everyone's behaving around me. And think about how you can change it. Write some notes in your notepad. How can you flip that over? It's an interesting one when you pause and think about some of the things that you say and repeat. when I think about it, I must call everyone like hen or doll like 50 million times a day. So then everyone starts saying hen and doll around the studio, which I don't know whether it's a good thing, but we have a little bit of time. So then if you sort of instill this voice within your communications, your social media, as we spoke about earlier, and in your verbal voice around your team and around your building and around your classes, then your team and your customers will generally really start to learn what your class business sounds like and what you want it to be known for. So I think it's important to recognize what you want that to be. And letting go of control of the voice. So once you've built your culture, if you have a team that communicate and do things to represent your class business on your behalf, are you able to consider getting to a stage which will free you of your bottleneck of allowing them to instill the culture and the language and the voice within their own communications? So you can stop saying things like, let me rewrite that email for you so that you can make sure it's in your voice. Send it to me before you reply. Run that by me before you send it out. Or I'd do it like this if I were you. Or just leave it with me, I'll sort it out. Because you are worried they're not going to use your voice that you created. So that just becomes another dependency on you, right? So you're creating a bottleneck by not allowing your voice to be learned and thread through your team and your communications. So that leads into that you could be heading into sort of a leadership barrier or a training barrier or a consistency problem, so you've not quite ironed it out, which can lead to a growth problem and a scalability problem. Because if everything lives inside your head and you're always bringing it back to you to make sure the voice sounds how you want it, but you've not made it clear and you've not set it, then you're not able to let others take that voice for you even further for you. So you become the bottle stopper. Okay? That not everyone needs to sound exactly like you, but it's not like about impersonating you, because everyone's got their own personality, but they've got enough clarity to represent the business confidently and within the right voice. So we're not trying to like make little tiny clones of you, but we're trying to give your team and your systems the consistency and the same principles. So if we can build this into our automations, we can follow up consistently, we can nurture inquiries, and we can improve the customer journey. So really take a minute to look at this. Hit me up if you want some more information on it, if you want to talk through it again. If you want to really sit down with me and talk about your voice and talk about how words and language and sentences that you want to keep running through your communications, let's talk through it. Let's go deeper. Let's pick it apart. Let's make sure that we, really nail it down before we build it into your automations and speak to your team if that's where you want to go with this. So let's build better communications, more consistency, stronger leadership, so that you are able to scale and reduce your dependency on you. Let's go. Let's find that voice. Loads of love.